A patient is asking me to call his son, who he's not spoken to in 10 years, and tell him to come visit him before he dies.
That's your mom. Like, how can you just not talk to her?
Yeah, when we needed you to eat and live and to survive, of course we had to stick around and deal with your... But once we don't need you anymore, what's left is the relationship that y'all cultivated, or lack thereof.
People are fed up and boundaries have been put in place, even for me.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, Meka Reaction Reviews, and today we're going to do a little bit of a different video on this channel. I was inspired by Amir's video I saw on YouTube. I'll put his name here and also in the description and also in the title of No Contact. And I've been seeing this going around for a while, but his video was the first video that made me really want to add my 2 cents. Before we get started, I do want to say I'm recording on the balcony. It's the only place I can find that was quiet, so if you hear birds chirping or something like that, I'm outside. Okay, I'm on the balcony of the hotel that I'm staying in, but I'm staying with people, and this is the one place I can find that's quiet. And also reacting to something that's a little bit different because I lost my other phone, my main work phone, a couple of days ago, and all of my work was on there. I batched 2 weeks of voiceovers and videos and all of my references and resources and all my videos that we're gonna react to, all on the phone. So I'm kind of have to start from scratch when it comes to video ideas, which maybe is a sign from God. I don't know. Took me 48 hours of tears to get over it, but here we are. Show must go on. Anyway, No Contact. Okay, so there's this trend that's going on, mainly on TikTok, and you've been seeing on YouTube a little bit too, where the millennial generation, and mostly the millennial, I feel like, and maybe the 90s kids, Gen X, I think, and a little bit of maybe the Gen Z, but I feel like it's a big chunk of it is the millennial generation who's deciding to go no contact with their parents.
If you're unfamiliar with what going no contact means, it basically means when you don't talk to your parents at all. There's no contact and there's low contact, but to be honest, after I was doing research about this video, I was surprised and really happy to know that I wasn't the only person going through something like this. I always thought I was alone regarding this issue, but as we go through this video, it is clear that I am not.
It's a way to break generational curses and just toxic behaviors that we're no longer going to allow to pass down by ignoring the neglect and the abuse that we have suffered by the hands of our parents, by just sweeping it under the rug and pretending it never happened. And I do think that some older generation of parents see this as oh, they're just these spoiled kids who are upset because their parents won't pay their rent or call them by their correct pronouns. That might be the newer thing when it comes to this trend, but that's not it. That's not what no contact is. And I am kind of sick of people taking the low-hanging fruit and trying to diminish something that is an important conversation.
There are a lot of people who start to go no contact with their parents for a plethora of reasons, mainly being childhood trauma and emotional abuse. But I do find it important to note that I'm not talking about what's becoming a quote-unquote a trend with cutting off your parents or going no contact with your parents. I'm not talking about, oh, we have different political views, or oh, they made me mad this one time. I'm talking about decades worth of problems and issues that people are fed up with, and they're just cutting it off high and dry.
It's the same thing of saying people only don't want to have kids now or hesitant to have kids because of feminism and OnlyFans, and it's not true. If you go out in the real world and actually touch grass and actually talk to people who are deciding to only have one kid or have no children, it's nothing to do with feminism or OnlyFans or global warming. Nothing to do with that. But I feel a lot of people try to curate their arguments by attaching them or by using low-hanging fruit to dismiss a legit conversation. Anywho, no contact. I am in no contact with my biological mother. And if you know anything about my life story, if you've been around long enough, you know that I ran away from home when I was 16 years old because I was severely abused. I was severely abused in every single category way that you can think of. Physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and yes, sexually. The sexual part was the least of it, but it's still buried into my memory and it still gives me PTSD to today. The same thing with my older brother who ran away before me when I was 14, and my sister also. I don't know the extent of my younger biological sister because I left. I have physical scars where I've been stabbed and slashed with a knife, and I have scars on my forehead where I've been bashed with weights, the type of weights you lift to make muscles. I have a scar on my lip because it was busted wide open. Abuse, right? No, it's not because my mom didn't want to call me the right pronoun. Okay, so I'm so sick of people trying to dismiss arguments that need to actually be had or conversations that are important, right? And the couple of times I did have a conversation with my mom, usually it was in the it was in the request of my little sister. At some point, I was trying to rebuild my relationship with my little sister, and to make her happy, to appease her, I would have conversations with my biological mother. And every single time I would bring up the abuse, it was almost like she lived in a completely different reality than me. Like, either she would really try to lessen the amount of abuse, like, oh my God, so what, I spanked you a couple of times. We're like, no, you stabbed me with a knife. Like, sorry. Like, it was almost like she was delulu. Like, she literally decided to voluntarily forget everything she's did, and it was like always up to me to let it go. Like, you need to just let that go. I'm your mom. I raised you. I fed you. I clothed you. Therefore, any trauma I caused upon you, any abuse or neglect that I've done, completely void that out, because I gave you a piece of bread to eat, right? And by the way, there were times where she did starve me, when she like locked me in the closet and refused to let me eat. One time she locked me in the closet for a month and only let me out when I needed to babysit my sister, and once in a while let me eat a sandwich. So yeah, because she allowed me to survive, then somehow I have to like completely forget everything she's ever done to me. And when I meet other adult children who's gone through similar situations that I have, or even maybe a bit less, maybe they didn't experience physical abuse, but they experienced the emotional, psychological abuse, or maybe their parents turned a blind eye when they got touched, like I did. When my cousin touched me, my mom literally let him right back in the house the next day, where he continued to try to touch me again, right? Or they just neglected him, or didn't feed them, or was out of the house 24/7 partying and living their own best single life, right? Where when the adult children tried to confront their parents, the most main thing I hear back, the feedback is, the parents almost pretend like it never happened. Like, they don't have any memory of it. They don't know what you're talking about. Like, what are you saying? I was the best mom ever. I did the best I can. Like, in the whole I did the best I can is a very common one, but that might be true, that you did the best you could at the time because you were young, you were naive, you were uneducated. The information or the way you were raised was bad information, and so you just passed that down. Like, no one was there to help you. Again, you're a single mom, you're trying, whatever. That might be true, but we're just trying to say the best you could isn't good enough, and it fucking traumatized me. And we just want you, a lot of times what kids really want is for you to just own it. Like, just own it, and then say sorry, and then stop the behavior. Those are the three things that most adult children are looking for. And the reason why most adult children cuss off their parents of no contact or low contact is because you refuse to do either of those three. Acknowledge what happened, apologize for what happened, and stop the behavior. Those three usually is the things that they fail to do, and that's why you get no contact, right?
And do know that regarding going no contact with your parents, it is the last resort for a lot of people. It is not something easy that they have decided to do. It is not fun for them. It's not something they wanted or desired. It is hard. And I hope that this video gives grace to people who are going through issues like this, or if you're someone who's from the outside looking in, you approach this topic with a little more empathy, because I am seeing a lot of people say, oh, it's toxic and it's wrong. How could you ever?
Typically, adult children that have gone no contact with their parents, that wasn't their first plan of action. They tried for probably many years to make the relationship with their mom or dad work. I know for me personally, there were years where my mom didn't take accountability. It wasn't just one conversation. True healing between two people cannot happen if only one person is acknowledging the trauma.
Facts. It cannot. It's literally, it's like a relation. It's a relationship. If you're in a relationship and it's one-sided, you're gonna leave. So it's like, if you're in a relationship, if you have a relationship with your parents and it's one-sided, you're gonna leave. Why should you have to feel this obligation to stick around and stay there just because it's family? It doesn't make sense to me, and it never has growing up. And it's like, it's clear there are some people who do not view family that way. It's clear to some people, some parents, family means nothing, and that means because I'm the parent, I could walk all over you. And it is okay and accepted for a adult child to put up their boundaries and put their foot down and, say, well, no, enough is enough. Perfectly fine for someone to do.
And then even once the trauma is acknowledged, there needs to be a change in behavior. And it drives me absolutely insane when people just think, oh, you took the easy way out by just cutting her off. That was not the easy part. That was a very difficult decision. And it's a decision that I personally do not regret, because I know everything that took place, and I know that I'd made the best decision for myself.
And the thing is, I think as adult children, we can recognize that you probably did a lot that we don't see and that we are unaware of. We weren't aware of your nights of crying in your pillow. We weren't aware of the things you might have had to do to pay the bills. We weren't aware of the 3 jobs you had to work and you almost worked yourself to death. We weren't aware of the times you stayed up really late because we had a fever. We can acknowledge that all of those things you did. We're not trying to dismiss those things. We're trying to say those things do not override the abuse and the trauma and the suffering you caused us. And we're not saying that you need to apologize for this for the rest of your life or be beat with a whip or anything like that. All we're saying is, again, just acknowledge the trauma caused, apologize for the trauma caused, and change the behavior that caused the trauma in the first place. That's usually all that we're asking. But what it feels like is parents' pride usually gets in the way of that.
As a parent, want to be a part of your adult children's lives, you have to show up.
All right, half an hour later, I got interrupted, so I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I'm very pro this movement, and there's a couple of reasons why. I think that it stops generational curses, and it stops the normalization of toxic behavior and toxic parenting styles. And I know with probably my audience, when they hear stuff like that, they think I mean soft parenting. That is not what I mean at all. Not even a tiny bit. And I wish that we can live in a world that's not so black and whites all the time, where it's like, if it's not this, it's that. Like, there is an in-between, guys. Like, grow up. But I come from a family where toxic parenting has been just passed down from generation to generation to generation, because I come from a family, my biological family anyway, that refuses to talk about things. Like, I'm from that family. If a niece gets touched by uncles does get invited to Thanksgiving and no one talks about it. That's the type of family I come from. And for me, when people growing up and creating boundaries and saying, I don't want that type of behavior or that type of lifestyle perception of life to be a part of my life and be a part of the children I will have life. So I'm going to cut it off here to stop generational curses, to stop toxic behavior being normalized, or of the way of parenting, right? There was a part in his video where he talks about how when he started dating or getting outside of his bubble, he started meeting people who come from good families. And to him, it seemed like such a fairy tale that it felt unreal. And I actually experienced that as well. When I started dating, like one of my first long serious relationships, he grew up, he had like the picture perfect fairy tale lifestyle childhood. And I'm not saying it didn't have any problems. However, his childhood was something to me that didn't exist in real life, because I never experienced it. Where I grew up, not only my family, but my community, my neighborhood, everybody had broken homes. Like, no one had dads. Everybody came from broken homes. Everybody was abused and neglected in some way. So it was so, again, normalized, that toxic behavior being normalized, right? And so he grew up in like the countryside of Italy, where his mom and dad are 70 years old and they're still madly in love, and they still make love, and they met when she was 18 and he was 21, and his mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she made pasta from scratch, and they had the 3 kids and the dog, and the father went out to work and brought home the bread. And he grew up in a household, or he had a childhood that I didn't know actually existed. I thought those things just existed in the movies, and vice versa. When he learned about my life, my childhood, he didn't actually believe me at first. Like, when we started dating, he started noticing all the scars on my body, the scars I mentioned that my mom left behind, the roadmap of all the abuse she's caused upon me. And when he would ask about each individual scar, it would be like the same story. Oh, my mom hit me with this, my mom stabbed me with that, my mom, knocked a crowbar across my back, whatever, right? And so he actually did not believe me, because he said, there's no way a mother would ever do that to a child. He thought I was like cutting myself, which is weird. It's not weird, but I never heard anybody like being a cutter and cutting their forehead and their lip. And usually you cut yourself in places that is not noticeable, but he thought I was cutting myself. So he went behind my back and called my adopted mom, the woman who took me when I ran away. And he asked her to confirm my story. And she said, yes, those things really happened to her. Because she had been around years and she witnessed the abuse from afar a little bit, because her kids went to the same school. My now siblings went to the same schools I went to, and she would volunteer at these schools a lot, because she was she was a present mom who was very present in her kids' lives. So she would volunteer at the schools that I went to, and she would see the abuse. She would see me come to school with black eyes and busted lips and bandages on my head and stuff like that. And so she confirmed, like, yes, those things happen. And he was like flabbergasted. He was like, there is no way in his mind that ever thought that was real. Like, people really did that to their kids. And I think that's also a problem, where a lot of people still live in like Delulu, which is also a blessing. Like, if you don't know that these things happen, that means you probably grew up in a relatively good family and a good community. But I think that this romanticization of parenthood it comes from people who don't actually recognize that hundreds of thousands of kids get reported abused and neglected every single year in the United States alone. And no, I'm not talking about kids who are mispronounced. Get that out of your head and stop reaching for the low-hanging fruit. I'm talking about actual abuse and actual neglect, right?
If you're someone that has a great relationship with your parents, good. I'm happy for you and I'm glad that that is the case. But as we go through this video, you're going to find out that there are a lot of just genuinely bad parents out there. You are going to be shocked with how some parents act towards their own offspring, and to the point where it doesn't even sound believable, because for the people in my life that I know that grew up with both parents or have no issues with their parents, it seems so unreal to me. Like, it seems like an HGTV Hallmark movie, like seeing the relationships that some of my friends have with their parents. I'm just like, damn, I didn't know this really existed. And the same thing on the flip side for them to me. When they hear about my family trauma and my stories, which I will be sharing, in this video, they are shocked with some of the things that we've gone through.
And this other thing with like the older generation, the old school parents who they're like, well, my father was an alcoholic and he beat me every day and I turned out fine. No, you didn't. Because again, one of the number one symptoms of abuse is the continuous cycling of abuse. So if you turn around and do the same thing to your kids, you're displaying a symptom of an abused person. You're not okay. You didn't turn out fine. I'm sorry. And if you really ask your kids how they really feel, you wouldn't realize, no, you weren't a great parent. So we need to stop that conversation. That's another reason why people are doing a no contact, is to stop the normalization of toxic behavior. Of, my mom used to punch me in the face and I turned out fine. No, you didn't. And it's not okay. And let's stop normalizing that behavior. And again, the opposite of that is not soft parenting. The opposite of that is not letting your kids do whatever they want and never saying no to them. The opposite of that is zero discipline whatsoever. Okay? But stopping the toxicity, stopping the normalization of toxic parenting and toxic behavior, I think, is one of the trademarks and one of the benefits of no contacts, right? And I think the normalization of toxic parenting is the same reason why a lot of the older generation would hear people say, I had no contact with my parents. And no matter what your parent did to you, it's like, well, that's your parent. You need to contact them no matter what they did to you. Like, no. You think that because you normalized abuse in your head. You normalized toxic parenting to yourself.
A lot of y'all have made beds that you now have to sleep in. And you don't like how it feels because there's a bunch of thumbtacks and nails and broken glass in those sheets. The same thumbtacks and nails and broken glass that were in our sheets when we were kids that we couldn't complain about because we would be disrespectful or talking back. Well, guess what? Now you have to lay in that bed and sleep in that bed and let those shards of glass slice your skin up while we heal our wounds from our childhood and we do the work that you refuse to do.
I mean, spot on.
Parenting, being a parent is a privilege, not a right. Anybody, any living thing on this planet, even a cockroach, can have a baby. It doesn't make you special because you had a baby. What makes you special is being a good parent. That doesn't mean a perfect parent, just a good parent. And not knocking your kid aside the head and not feeding them or not being absent out of their lives is literally the least thing that you can do. We're asking for you to do like the basic thing as a parent, right? And so when you abuse your kids, when you destroy their childhoods, when you've neglected them, you lose the privilege of being a parent. And you have no right to ask for that privilege back unless you do the three things that's required of you. Acknowledge what you've done, apologize for your behavior, and stop the behavior. Now, are there some things that grown-up kids need to do once those three things are done? Yeah, you need to forgive and move on. But those three things are required. And again, usually when there's no contact, it's because those three things has not been done. The parent has not acknowledged what they did, they have not apologized, and they've not stopped the behavior. This is why I stand 10 toes deep in this idea that I'm so against just telling people to have kids. This whole right-wing traditionalist sort of conservative movement of trying to shame and fear-monger people into having kids, especially females and women, I'm so against that. I'm so 100 and bazillion% against that. I don't know why you guys think it's a good idea when people tell you to your face that they're either A, not ready to have kids, or B, they're not fit to be parents. Why you want those people to be parents? Make that make sense to yourself, right? The responsible thing, not the selfish thing, the responsible thing is to acknowledge you're not in a place to be a parent and not bring kids into that situation. The selfish thing is to know that you're not in a place to be a parent and still bring kids into that situation. That is the actual selfish thing to do, not the opposite way around. I think you guys have it quite backwards. And no, that is not a pro-choice argument. I am pro-life. There is 1,000,000,001 ways not to get pregnant. I've said it before.
before. Let's stop acting and pretending like not getting pregnant is rocket science. Be a responsible freaking adult, protect your womb, or keep it in the pants.
It seems like sometimes people who are like pro children don't actually care about the quality of life of those children. They just want the kids here. But they don't care if their kids are being neglected. They don't care if those kids are being abused. They don't care if their kids don't have fathers and all these things, because no one's really hitting the root of the problem of why people aren't having kids. They're just want you to have kids, right? And you see these podcasts, again, the low-hanging fruit of like, the reason why people aren't having kids is because of feminism and OnlyFans. Maybe go touch grass for 2.5 seconds or actually do your research, because that is literally nowhere in people's minds the reason why they're not having kids. The majority of reason why people are either not having kids or only having one kid is because of financials and they can't afford it. But there's a platitude of other reasons why people are deciding not to have children. It has nothing to do with feminism. It has nothing to do with OnlyFans. It has nothing to do with global warming. But because people want to curate a narrative to their audience, they reach for the low-hanging fruit instead of having an actual serious conversation on why people aren't having kids. And one of them is, I come from a severely abusive household, and I come from a generation of abusive households. And I want to stop that generational curse, and I want to stop that normalization of that toxic behavior. And no, it's not as easy of just saying, I'm not going to do it. It takes a lot of healing, and it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of unpacking. First, you got to heal from the trauma that you've actually has been bestowed upon you before you actually try to be a parent, right? And so people recognizing that and slowing down on producing children, I think, is a good thing. For me, I like quality, not quantity. So people taking their time to cut off the toxic behavior and then try to change the toxic behavior within themselves, I think is a good thing, and I think it be applauded. It's not a selfish thing. It's so stupid to call that selfish. I am pro the no contact. I'm pro the no contact parents. I'm pro the no contact friends. I'm pro the no contact family members. I'm pro the no contact because I believe in boundaries. I believe, like, once you grow up, because it takes time to learn how to create healthy boundaries, but once you know how to do it and you learn how to say no, trust me, you just live in such a more peaceful place in your mind. Like, it's just peaceful. It's peaceful when you learn how to create boundaries and say no to people.
This is the least favorite part of my job. My patient's asking me to call his son, who he's not spoken to in 10 years, and tell him to come visit him before he dies. Okay. So he said no, he's not going to come. I said that I respect that decision. Asked if he wants me to notify him whenever his dad does die, and he said yes. I have to go in here now and tell the patient that. Okay, I told my patient. Didn't go well. I told him that his son said that he doesn't want to come. The patient asked if I told him that he was dying. I said I did. He said, you should have told him that he had to come. I said, I'm not going to do that. I offered, if my patient wants to write his son a letter, that I will get it to him, but I said I can't tell you that he'll open it. My patient told me to get out. I love this patient so much, but it's just not my place to guilt trip someone into coming. I have no idea what this person was like the first 80 years of their life before I met them.
That's why it's like the whole, like, if you have children, you won't die alone, which is good. Don't know how that's not the selfish thing to just have kids just to keep yourself company in your old age. That sounds pretty selfish, but the other way around is selfish, I guess. Never mind. No, it's not a guarantee that you're gonna have kids and you're not gonna die alone. The guarantee is if you are actually a good present parent, you might not die alone, right? That's the guarantee. Not, I'm gonna have kids, so therefore I'm not gonna die alone. No, it's the way you treat your kids. There's literally hundreds of thousands of elderly parents that die alone all the time because they were crappy parents and their kids don't want to be around for them. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it here. This video was way longer than I wanted it to be, but I'm very pro this movement. I'm very pro cutting people out of your life. I'm very pro creating boundaries. I'm very pro breaking generational curses. I'm very pro stopping normalizing toxic behavior. I'm very pro all of that. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. The other thing I've been saying in my videos is that my channel has been heavily shadow banned. I'm not moving away from politics, and I'm not going to stop talking about things YouTube doesn't like, but I'll probably mix it up a little bit. That's why I'm doing this video. And so I'd like to ask you guys to like, comment, and share this video. It really helps try to push it through the algorithm. And also, if you want to support the channel further, you can donate. My PayPal and Cash App link is in the comment section down below. You can super thanks. And you guys let me know if you've ever had to go no contact with your parents, friends, or family, and let me know what the impact of that was and why you did it in the first place. All right, you guys, you have a good day. Bye.
My patient is asking me to call his son, who he's not spoken to in 10 years, and tell him to come visit him before he dies.
That's your mom. Like, how can you just not talk to her?
Yeah, when we needed you.